Good morning and welcome to the Caregiver Teleconnection program, Avoiding the Potholes of the Dementia Journey. Today's presentation is going to be with Evalyn, Greb, and Glenda Rogers. They will be giving a little talk about themselves. The session is being recorded and will be posted on our website. And if you have any questions, you can call our customer service at 866-390-6491. Evalyn, Glenda, take it away.
Thank you, Minerva.
Good morning, folks, and thank you for joining us. Glenda and I have worked really hard on this to be fairly entertaining. And again, it's not meant to be disrespectful at all because we're both in the business. We've been listening to participants for 12 years, 13 years, Glenda.
We're in our 14th year.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Older. And what we're going to talk about is not just, what we know professionally, but what we have heard from you as participants. And Glenda will tell a little about herself. I have been a social worker for over 50 years in San Diego County, working with elderly and disabled people and their caregivers. Glenda?
She started when she was about 4 or 5 years old, right? So I'm so glad to be with you today. As they said, my name is Glenda Rogers. My background is in behavioral science and also in social work. I was the director of our area agency on aging here in Central Texas for about 17 years. So I have been in the business also for a long time. And as Evalyn said, we've been together working on the Caregiver Teleconnection for the WellMed Charitable Foundation, and we're in our 14th year now. So I just want to say we have heard a lot over that time, and a lot of our presentation today will be telling you what we've heard and what we've learned over time. So Evalyn, let's go ahead and kind of start with the beginning.
As you always say, Glenda, I'm going to talk a little bit about dementia because oftentimes people think dementia is actually a specific diagnosis. But dementia is actually a symptom of several diagnoses. It's an umbrella term. It's meant to, in the long run, it's a very incremental disintegration of brain cells. And that is what leads to memory loss, the inability to think, the problem-solving inability, the loss of judgment, the loss of language, eventually the loss of mobility, all of these losses, but it's incremental. To be defined as dementia, according to the Alzheimer's Association, it needs to really have a severe enough effect to interfere with someone's daily life. And we're going to talk about Alzheimer's dementia, even though there's really body vascular dementia, frontotemporal dementia, Parkinson's, and other dementias. But actually, Alzheimer's is about 70% of all dementias. So that's what dementia is, and it's not itself a diagnosis. The effects on dementia caregivers are different than the effects on regular caregivers. And I'm going to tell you some of the things that I learned when I was going through this and trying to update it a little bit. Now, this is old information from the Center for Disease Control, but they did a survey and they found out that 22% of US adults are caregivers. 10% of those are dementia caregivers. 10% of dementia caregivers have their own disabilities, but they're still trying to take care of their loved one and keep them at home, either on a team, like our friend on the phone, or, by themselves. And what this results in is, a big mess for the caregiver. They first of all often have to quit work. That's particularly bad for women who might have had to quit work for a couple of years to raise children, and their Social Security is already low. It results in more chronic illnesses, and that can happen from them even worse or just worsening, or from the fact that caregivers often forget about taking care of themselves. So what they're doing is they're taking care of their loved one. They're not having a good diet. They're not going to their doctor's appointments, and their health, can result in stress-related heart disease, diabetes from a bad diet. I mean, we really, what you folks are doing, if you're providing dementia care, is amazing work. You know, people have increased depression, anxiety. The CDC says that anxiety, so many more people who care for folks with dementia are using psychoactive drugs than the regular population. And that's not probably just using, it's probably some misusing too. So it's scary. We also have this, you know, fact that you can get injured, you know, your loved one goes to fall or trip, or and you go to grab them and you hurt your back, or you know, you break an arm. You know, it's a high risk for injury and a high risk for insufficient sleep, especially those folks who are taking care of someone with sundowners or who are wanderers. And of course, then there's the fact that 30% of caregivers die before their recipient. And I think, you know, we're going to get to the biggest problem, biggest pothole in town, which Glenda's going to talk about a little bit down the road here.
Right. Yeah, but as you said, the 30% of the caregivers die before the care recipient. And I just wanted to share a little personal information. That's what happened in my family. My mother was diagnosed with cancer, and my dad was taking care of her, just giving his all to her like you do. And he ended up dying before she did. So this is a good statistic as far as I'm concerned, but it's sad to go through. Well, here we are. We don't have all the answers, and this is Evalyn and I'll let you decide who is who on that with a potato chip on their head. But we're going to share information that we've learned over these 13 plus years and try and make this journey just a little bit smoother for you. And so these are some of the potholes, and you can name them whatever you would like to name them. Some are deeper than others. Some are shallow. You can just bump right through some of them. Some of them you may not be so lucky on. So we're going to talk about this. So to identify the potholes, you have to understand the disease of dementia of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, as Evalyn referred to, is a progressive and fatal disease of the brain. And when you think about it, if you had brain cancer, you might be treated a little bit differently in the medical profession or in the world in general, because people kind of understand cancer and they can put themselves in your shoes, but they don't understand dementia necessarily. Alzheimer's disease usually has 3 phases, as you can see on the slide there: an early stage, a middle stage, and a late stage. And we know that individuals may experience the symptoms and progress through the disease in different ways. Everybody is different. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's brain is different. But we know on average, the person that has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease can live from, let's say, 4 to 8 years after the diagnosis. But understand that many times the diagnosis occurs in the phase 2, in the middle stage, before you really put a name to it. We also know that some people live a lot longer than the 4 to 8 years. If the person you're caring for is a wanderer, I know this sounds funny. It did to me the first time I read about it. And they're moving all the time. They're really keeping their body in shape. And so it does make logical sense when you think about wandering, that those people may tend to live longer than the other people. I think the main thing on this slide is our recommendation for a smoother journey, that last little bullet point. We need to educate ourselves, engage ourselves, and prepare ourselves. Okay, Evalyn?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about caregiving and the pre-Alzheimer's diagnosis, or that stage 1 or really close. You know, I can't think of anything scarier than living with somebody 40 or 50 years, or having your mom, who you've known for 50 or 60 years, start becoming a different person and not understanding why. And I think what happens to caregivers, or to the family, the loved ones of these people with dementia, is that the first response, the first coping mechanism that comes to mind is denial. Because who wants to think that your mom or your spouse is starting to lose their brain, that the brain cells are shrinking? It's a tragic thing to face. And so oftentimes, you know, we go into a state of denial and people get a very late stage diagnosis. And there's a lot of problems with that because most of the drugs that you've heard about, and there are some, they're getting better and better. They don't cure it, but they can certainly slow it down. But they're for the early stage of dementia. Now, it's not just denial. I mean, we go into grieving, and we have all the different stages of grieving. And we also, I think, start suffering ourselves from a little embarrassment. Maybe your loved one has started repeating or started getting lost. So there's a lot of things going on. You probably have a list of your own of these things. And so I think a lot of caregivers wait for that denial. Glenda, show them your great slide, because it's easier. It doesn't hurt as much. But what we're going to do is talk about the early stage symptoms. And it is hard to know if somebody's just having a bad day, or maybe they're having an infection. Maybe they just need to see the doctor because something else is going on. But there are symptoms. I'm gonna kind of go through a list, and my list I'm going to go through quickly so we can spend more time talking to you at the end and talking about the fixes that are for our potholes here. Of course, loss of short-term memory. When somebody starts saying, "Where are the keys? Where'd you put my pants?" I didn't get breakfast when they did. Those are the sorts of things that we hear all the time. Repeated questions, lack of pleasure. The things they used to play cards every night. Now they can't even concentrate long enough to play cards. Just kind of the self-centered behaviors where they don't become very nice people anymore. You don't like them as much as you used to. That's really hard. It's hard to take, hard to live with, hard to be with yourself when you feel like, wow, this person's really changing. This isn't the person that I once loved. It's not the person I fell in love with. So then you get that increased anger and maybe irritability. But they certainly get it. They get that increased anger, and they get the irritability and take it out on you. So let's look at the potholes. From what us heads have heard, I don't know if that's me or Glenda, but it's a mustache.
The mustache is a giveaway.
Oh, it's you. Yes. We are, these are just the things that we've heard. People they feel like they're overwhelmed. How can I cope? Once they really use the word dementia and realize that that's what's going on, they lose a partner, and we've heard people relate to us that they used to have a lot of friends. They were very social. People would come over to the house all the time to visit both they and their spouse. But then when the spouse started, talking weird or not responding to questions, they became uncomfortable and didn't come back. And that's really, what we need is socialization when we're in a situation like being a caregiver for dementia. So it's a huge loss for us. And just, the whole issue of taking care of yourself, dealing with change, where did my golden years go? We've had to talk on what are the golden years? Well, if you had imagined golden years with your spouse and you're not going to have them, how depressed are you getting? And so you do wait too long for the diagnosis because you don't want to hear it. But please, if you feel like any of these symptoms belong to the person you're caring for, get yourself to a neurologist, and we'll talk more about that.
For sure. So, as Evalyn and I have said, we've been doing this for a long time. And if you've been on with me as a facilitator, I always like the part where we get to take action, because I think that empowers us. I think that makes us feel better about what we're doing if we can make some positive steps. So let's talk a little bit about this. I don't want you to be the ostrich with your head in the sand. That just doesn't help anybody. It delays the inevitable, really. And so that's why I'm so adamant about taking some kind of action. And I'm not talking about running a race. I'm talking about taking a step. So think about it in that way. One of the ladies earlier, before we started recording, was talking about her care team. And that's one thing I'm just really adamant about. And you might ask, well, what is a care team? It's a group of people that you partner with and rely on to provide help to you and to the person you're caring for throughout this disease process. And we've talked about this. It's a terminal disease. You need all the help you can get. You become the center of this care team, and you're not alone. And that in itself is empowering, not to be alone, because so many caregivers that we've heard over time have talked about how very alone they feel, that they feel they're the only one that's facing these challenges in caregiving, but it's just not so. And so a care team can really help in that regard. And also it addresses isolation, because as person gets into their caregiving journey, they really do tend to get isolated because they're focusing on the chores, on the duties every day that you have to take care of. Let me just tell you a little bit about isolation. It's not good. There was a recent study, and it found that isolation significantly increases a person's risk of premature death from all causes, a risk that may rival those of smoking, obesity, and physical inactivity. Social isolation was associated with about a 50% increase in the risk of dementia. That's kind of scary stuff. So it's important for you to develop whatever you want to call that care team: neighbors, friends, clergy, physician, social worker. Have them all join in and help you with this thing. And part of the thing that a care team can help you with also is to do care planning. I know that we talk about this a lot, Evalyn, and we hear other presenters talk about this a lot. It's so important to start the conversation early. Talking about advanced directives, powers of attorneys, knowing what the last wishes are of the person you're caring for while they can still tell you about it. That's very important. In the care plan, you want to identify resources, those things that are going to help you along this journey. Don't wait till it's an emergency to try and figure out what you're going to do. Revisit your care plan regularly. It's not in concrete, it's very fluid. So revisit it, tweak it, make it personal for you and the person for whom you're caring. Really important stuff.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about phase 2, and I want to acknowledge that I know the Alzheimer's Association splits it up into 10 phases with much more specifics, but I think for those of us who are kind of on the outside of the Alzheimer's Association and who are just trying to, get our head wrapped around how demented somebody is and how much care they're going to need, that we use 3 stages. And the middle stage is one where you've probably already gotten a diagnosis, or you're in the process of getting it. You understand that, there's some loss that's significant. You understand that it's beginning to put a burden on you. You understand that you need help, that you need information, you need education, you need to do things. And you wind up spending so much of your time thinking about how to make all of that happen. So this is just a list, but it's like the symptoms of phase 1, a little worse. Maybe wandering has started. Maybe the repetition has started. And I know we've heard a lot from people that repetition drives them nuts. They get so frustrated as caregivers with, I need lunch, you had lunch. I need lunch, you had lunch. I need lunch, you had lunch. It's very difficult to know how to deal with that. And also, sometimes people begin behaving inappropriately, sexually, maybe having seeing things that aren't there, having delusions, things that you haven't really dealt with before, and you need help. You need to get help on how to deal with them. Otherwise, Glenda,
More potholes.
You get bigger potholes, more potholes, bigger ones, deeper ones. Yes. And some of those are struggling to provide care. Where does the money come from? You're not working, your loved one's not working. Maybe you're both on Social Security. how do you pay for caregiving help, resources? How do you get your family to help out if they're, somewhere else, maybe you get them to send money or something, but you got to figure that part out. These are the potholes. Your friends stay away, you're busy all day. You're trying to keep your loved one supervised if necessary, but certainly busy and engaged as much as possible, because the more engagement they have, the slower the progression of the dementia. And, dealing with those unwanted behaviors, such as the problem with hygiene. We hear about that all the time. They don't want to take their clothes off. They don't want to take a bath. They don't want to take a shower. Don't touch me. I'm just fine. And reacting to delusions and delirium. And I think probably, Glenda, people will have a lot more to tell us about this list when we open it up for comments.
I hope so, because we're still learning. We've been
We
doing
sure
a long
are.
time, but we're still learning. Y'all are the experts. We're just learning from you. So this is one of our favorite slides right here, pictures. This is a road crew. And so if you look at this, everybody has a job. Everybody's doing what they need to do to keep this car on the road. And so that's kind of your job also, being a manager of everything, that's happening. And so I put in here, don't let the wheels fall off. And that's so important. And it's so easy to happen, because we hear people all the time that the wheels have fallen off their caregiver journey, and it's hard to listen to, and it's just excruciating for them to go to. So you can see again, I come back here and I talk about care teams again, and that's really your road crew, if you want to look at it that way, critical to have in effect. We talk about educational resources. The WellMed Charitable Foundation has caregiver SOS centers here in the Texas area. We're going to have resource pages, and it's got a lot of resources on it. And you can find more information about that if you're living in Texas. Do we have them in Florida? I think we may, a couple. What I would like to say is that if you come across, you're working with your road crew, your caregiver team, and you come across issues that really need to be taken care of, but it's not possible to take care of them right away, think about, and we talk about this in professional meetings too, talk about having a parking lot over here and put those things in that parking lot. You've got to get to them, but you don't have to do it right now, but you want to make sure you don't forget them. So put them there, let them sleep there, let them go to rest there, unplug the vehicle and let them sit there for a while, and then work with your care team on resolving those issues and taking care of them. Don't ruminate. We don't have the cow picture in here. I don't know what happened to the cow.
We forgot that.
I don't know what happened. We have a picture of a cow that's chewing its cud. And so if you've been in any kind of crisis before, you know what I'm talking about. That video goes through your head over and over and over again. Try and stop that video. Don't do the I should haves, I could haves, I wish I had, it would be different if. That kind of thinking is just not helping you at all. So recognize it, address it, and then move forward. Remember, your stuff in your parking lot is still there, because you will need to take care of it eventually, but at least you can manage it while it's sitting there before you take action on that.
Glenda, if you don't mind, I think one of the things that we didn't talk about when we were rehearsing was the plan of care needs to include emergency plans.
Oh, yes.
For both the caregiver and for the care recipient. If the caregiver were to go down with the stroke, who's going to deal with that? What's going to happen? How is that going to get taken care of? And in the same way, when you're putting things in the parking lot, keep that plan of care out where people can see it, and make sure you've got an advance directive in there. Make sure you've got the power of attorneys that you need, see legal services. That's not one for the parking lot. You need to do that right up front. And thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to go to phase 3, the late stage symptoms. And of course, these are the worst. These are the folks that many times you see in nursing homes who are sitting maybe with their mouth open, looking very blank in the entryway. And it's really hard to see human beings looking like that or feeling like that. You know, their brain has continued to shrink. One of our experts on Alzheimer's said that at the end of life, the brain is 1/8 of its original size. 1/8, which is just, such an awful thing. They've lost their ability in so many areas, to speak, to understand speech, to recognize their family. They may have aggressive behavior. They may not move at all. They may just, sit there and sleep. And I knew a woman in a nursing home where my mom died that had been there for 25 years. And she hadn't said a word for 15 years. And all she did was sit in her chair, and her daughter would come in and feed her once a day in the evening after work. And it just feels, like, wouldn't it be nice if there was a cure? Wouldn't it be nice, if euthanasia was legal? Wouldn't it be nice if we could decide when we go? But this is a problem for caregivers because they need help with all of these things. And you may not be able to provide the physical help. And then you've got to figure out about the money. How are you going to pay for enough physical help? So I want to add one thing that's really important here. Even in the severest stage of Alzheimer's, your care recipient does not lose their sense of touch, which is why we always recommend when you're trying to get their attention that you put your hand on their arm. They do not lose their sense of hearing. They may not pay attention to you. Their brain may not be accepting what you're saying, and they can't respond, but they don't lose their sense of hearing. And they don't lose, this is really important, their ability to respond to emotion. And as a caregiver, the way that you are presenting to your loved one, the way that you may have had a bad day, or maybe they really pissed you off. They've been calling you terrible names, or, saying that you're sleeping with the neighbor, or whatever it is. If you get angry about that, they're going to get angry because they're going to respond to your emotions. And it's wired in. It's one of the last things. It's a wired in response. So I wanted to let you know about that because it's such an important thing. And then
go ahead.
You can go ahead, Glenda.
Well, the one thing that this brought to mind is when you were talking about, euthanasia, or you wish this was over, or you wish they could go to sleep at night and not wake up so that this journey would be over. That's perfectly normal. There's nothing that you're thinking about that's going to cause any harm to the person you're caring for. It's just the stress that causes us to think that way. So it's perfectly normal.
And the burden.
For sure.
Yeah. So phase 3, here's what it does to caregivers. You are done. You're burned out. You're overwhelmed. You're trying to provide perhaps 24/7 surveillance. You have to be hyper vigilant, especially if you have a wanderer or somebody with sundowners. So you're up all the time, and you're living with this person that you don't know, with this body, who is not the person that you've known. And you're probably doing too much. You're probably lifting too much, cooking too much, doing too much driving, going to get medications, all of the things that are driving you nuts. And mentally, you probably have trouble coping because this disease is hideous. Watching it, being there, trying to support it, trying to make the best of it, it takes a huge toll on you as a caregiver. So mentally, you have trouble coping, and you feel too guilty to think about placement. Typical, we hear that all the time. I promised mom, I would never put her in a nursing home. Well, you know what? Nobody can provide 24/7 care, but one person cannot provide 24/7 care. And one of the things that should be part of your plan is to go and look at a couple of, placement choices, and if the person is in stage 1 or stage 2, you might take them, and have them look at at a place and see which one they think is best, so that you know that there are options for you and you don't have to get to the point of being sick yourself. And that's really kind of the crux of this presentation.
It is indeed. And so early on, Evalyn said that I was going to talk about the #1 caregiver pothole. And this kind of is a picture of what that might look like. So don't let the potholes swallow you up like they did this car. So the #1 caregiver pothole is lack of care for yourself. You are so involved in caring for the care recipient, the person that you love, perhaps, the person you're caring for, that you forget about yourself. And so you need to take your own oxygen first. And I refer back to this because Dr. Jamie Heisman and Lisa Gibbons did indeed write a book about taking your own oxygen first, referring to when you're on an airplane flying. And they say if there's an emergency and the oxygen comes down, you can't help anybody else unless you put your oxygen on first. Same thing in caregiving. You can't help somebody else unless you take care of yourself. So you can see in the list here, regular checkups, take your medication, try and socialize, going back to that isolation issue again, exercising. Doesn't mean going to the gym necessarily. Maybe you can't work that in, but walking out to the mailbox, walking around the block, doing exercises inside the home. You know, and the medications and checkups, and then the nutritious meals. Watch your alcohol and drug use. It's really easy when we're overwhelmed or stressed to reach for the first thing to eat. If one pill is good, 2 is better. A drink really calms me down. You know, it's human nature. That's just what we do. But please, you know, take an inventory of that, of what you're doing in that realm. If you don't have enough support, look at that road crew again, look at your care team, or revise it if you need to do that with your care plan. It also is important for us to be flexible as caregivers. That's necessary every day. You just don't know what the next day is, you know, holding for you. There's also some resources we're going to have on the resource pages about adjusting the environment to help you, and that might be bed alarms, door alarms, that sort of thing. We'll give you some resources for that also. Okay, well, now we're getting to the crux of things, so I have to get ready. Y'all excuse me for just a second. Got to get my hard hat on. Got to get my safety glasses on, because what we're doing next is it's time for the cement mixer, and it's time to fix those potholes. And so, you know, you've got to have this honest talk with your care team, but in particular with your family. You need to make sure that they understand what this disease is, and that it is a terminal and progressive disease. You know, part or full-time caregiving, you might need someone that you're going to have to pay, a care manager, to help you. Review the care plan again, look at your resources. Is it time for placement? Don't wait until there's an emergency. Decide what you're going to do. Take action and get help. Be flexible. I want to get down to the personal support. You know, your physicians should always be involved in your care plan. And as Evalyn was talking about, be careful of your reactions and your behaviors, because they do affect the person with dementia. In personal support, the little bullet that we have there, maybe you're caregiving for someone you love, a spouse, someone like that. Others may be forced into caregiving. They're the only one who can do it, and they're being pressured by other family members or other people around them. Either way, you know, it's important for you to get the help you deserve. And it may look different for you than it looks for everybody else. So don't be judging yourself based upon what other people are doing. It's your individual journey. And so you have to make it look like what it needs to look like for you. Do you have any ideas that you would like to share with us at this time? We will go forward with the presentation to finish it up and we will leave time for that. But if you have something you would like to ask right now or add to the cement mixer time of fixing the potholes, then you're welcome to do so right now.
Okay, everyone, you can either use the chat room if you don't feel comfortable talking, or you can raise your hand, unmute your phone using *6. We'd be very happy to hear comments from you.
Anything in the chat box, Minerva?
Nothing as of right now.
Okay. Well, we're glad that you're here, and we hope you're not too overwhelmed with everything that we're sharing with you. So we'll
I beg your pardon. This is Anne-Marie.
yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation so far. It's been very interesting to me. How do you respond to people who most sincerely and beautifully offer their help, and they say, "What can I do to help?" And my mind is a total blank. I know that as a caregiver, I need to build my care team. I know I need to ask for help, but I don't think I need help with anything. And I don't want to tell them I don't need help with anything, because I think it is just a blind spot maybe for me. And I know that as the disease progresses, I'm going to need more help later on. How do you figure out what to ask for?
Right. You want me to go with that, Evalyn, or?
I'd be happy to, but you can go.
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead. I'll chime in.
Okay, because we've actually heard from caregivers about how they dealt with this. First of all, one guy said, the first list you should make in the morning is your self-care list, which I always think is beautiful. And then you should always have kind of a running list of what people can do to help if you need a little help. They could pick up the prescriptions while they're at the same store that you go to. They could maybe babysit, or care recipient sit, for an hour so that you can take a walk, or even 15 minutes. They could come over and play cards, the kinds of things that help you, because it's not that you want to give up something that you're doing. It may be that you need to be busy in other areas, or you need to rest, and they could help you get some rest. What do you think?
I think that's what I was thinking too, Evalyn, is to have that list at hand all the time. Now, you may want a couple lists if you have family, other family members, siblings, whatever, on your care team. You may want to have a kind of a separate list for them. Maybe they can write out the checks. Maybe they can inform other family members of what's going. And then the one like Evalyn talked about for everybody else, going to the grocery store, going to the pharmacy, sitting for a little while, coming over and playing music with the
Uber Eats.
What?
Call Uber Eats and order.
Yeah, calling Uber Eats. That's right. And your family members on your list, maybe financial support. Maybe you need help from them financially in order to make this be the best journey that it could be without so many potholes, or maybe at least fill them in a little bit.
Thank you.
And to be honest about how sick your loved one is. And I think that's one of the problems. We've also heard people say, well, yeah, my son comes from Iowa to Kansas once a year, and he's there for 3 days. And he goes, well, Dad doesn't seem very sick to me.
Yeah.
And he doesn't. He's been there 3 days. What he sees is just this little snippet of what you as a caregiver may be living with day in and day out that is so hard to deal with. So be sure that you fill them in on the reality, of what they're going to see when they get there. And they may not see it, but that's what's there.
Yeah. Thank you, Anne-Marie. We appreciate that so much.
I appreciate your thoughts on this. It's my situation is simple compared to a lot of folks. It's my husband, and my mother lives with me, and we like it.
Yeah.
And I have an adult child living with me, and that's good. And I have a lot of friends, and I feel it feels like another burden on me to
Mm.
have to figure out what to tell them that I need. And I don't have a list because I just, as you know, arrogant as it sounds, I don't think I need anything. So how do you tell people I don't need anything right now, but I'm going to need you later. Please don't go away. You know, I don't want to say no and they go away forever. But how do you do that?
I think that's appropriate response that you just gave.
Oh,
I
okay.
appreciate so much that you've offered to help me today, and you can use the word today. There's not anything that I really need, but I would so appreciate, you for being with me through this journey. And I'm sure there is something I will need that I can ask for at some point.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Anne Marie. Anyone else have a question or a comment?
We have something from Thomas here. My family and I have used Google Nest cameras to monitor.
Hello.
Oh,
Sorry.
hold on just a
My
minute.
name is Francis. I talked to you real briefly before you started. I'm going to have to leave the conversation. I just want to reassure myself that I can call this telephone number, the 1-866 number,
Yeah.
and talk to somebody at the office to get further information.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. And you will also, if you register for the call today, you'll be receiving a follow-up email, and we will have all of our resource pages included in that. So that you may have some
Okay.
answers right there, but you can always call our customer service representative.
Oh, okay, great. I want to tell you what a beautiful job that I feel like both Evalyn and Glenda have done. I appreciate your help. This is all new to me. We're 1 year into our diagnosis, and things have started to change a little. And so, anyway, I'm not going to get into any more than that. But I want to tell you that I have written a page full of notes, and I'm going to be referring to them, and I'm sure I'm going to have more questions. So,
Well,
thank you very much for everything that y'all do, and again, encourage y'all to continue to do that. It has been very helpful to me today.
Well,
And you
thank
can always
you so
watch the
much.
podcast. Watch the podcast if
Watch
you
the
need
podcast
or
and
have
come
your
back.
family. Yeah, get your family to watch it.
That's right.
Oh yes. Well, actually, one of my daughters is one of the care team. I have two daughters on our care team as well as our physician, so one of them is able to be here and is listening to this conversation, and we'll probably have questions when y'all offer it for more questions. And she's the one that found the notice of the meeting today, and so we really do work very closely together, even though we're 150 miles apart. So I talk to her every single day.
Beautiful, beautiful. We hope to see you on our future sessions. Watch for the calendar. You can find the podcast on our website and also on YouTube. So thank you so much.
Okay, that is great. I'll add that on there also. YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm writing that now, and I'm going to say goodbye and thank you so much. You are truly a blessing from God. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I think we'll go forward, and I understand there's other questions that we will get to, Evalyn, because I know you were reading one off the chat box.
Yes,
So
Tom.
let's move forward, and then we will finish up the
Okay.
presentation with questions. How about
Yes.
that?
Thomas said, my family and I have used Google Nest cameras to monitor family members from a distance. You can speak to family members through cameras if needed. The cameras record for several days to several months, which is probably good into the second phase. I'm not sure, in the third phase, generally people can't concentrate either to push the right button to get through to the family, nor, even to read a book, because there's just not that level of concentration there. So it's a great tool for stage 1 and maybe part of stage 2. And thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. So we're talking already, but we want to understand how you're handling the potholes in your caregiver journey. And this picture was pretty meaningful when I found it. So are you the guy in the yellow shirt and he's all energized and informed and ready to take the rest of the journey? Or are you one of these many other people, and some of them are giving some kind of signs, but we could say, they're saying, I don't know what I'm doing. They don't have any energy. They're just sitting around and waiting for the next thing to happen and look overwhelmed to me, whether they're just exhausted, that could be, because they look like they're kind of working on the road also. So let's continue with our conversation. Once again, we have resources that we're going to provide for you, and there are a lot of them, and I think you'll be appreciative of that. Any other questions or comments, concerns that you'd like to bring up? We have about 10 minutes left. Well, I hope that means that you've learned a lot from what we've been saying today. What we've learned from you over the years is actually what we're sharing with you today. So here's part of the resources. We're not going to go through this list because, as I said, you're going to get it anyway. The ones that we're showing here, plus the ones that we have also added. So look at that. Let's see, there was one that I wanted to refer to. If y'all excuse me a minute while I put my glasses on. Little bitty print on my pages. So I had talked a little bit about the WellMed SOS centers. They give caregiver information and support in various areas. And I mentioned to you that they are here in Texas, San Antonio, Corpus Christi. I know that the lady that was on was from Corpus Christi, Brownsville, Harlingen, McAllen, El Paso, and Dallas. And they can provide one-on-one coaching, care plan development, which we talked about extensively, support groups. They have classes, and these can be done virtually as well as in person. So I wanted to be sure and bring that back up. If you want more information on that particular resource, you can call our customer service representative, and she again will be able to assist you with those resources. Evalyn, did you have anything about resources you wanted to share?
There's a nice referral to a couple of agencies that provide the adaptive equipment that we talked about. And we're not like saying those are the ones you should use, but it looked like, one of them was started by occupational therapists, and the point is, if there's anything that you can get in your home to make your work easier, we want you to do it. And Medicare usually pays for that adaptive equipment. So check it out, see what you can find on that list if there's anything that would help you. I also really want to encourage everyone to join a support group. The minute that, things start changing, the minute you think, maybe, just maybe, I'm in denial here. Maybe I need to face what's going on. When you go and talk to other people who've lived through that phase, or who are in phase 2 or in phase 3, we get so much information. That's why Glenda and I are doing this, because what you have given us is the gift of how I coped, how it worked for me, how I can share with other people. And you too, as a caregiver, can share in those support groups and be really meaningful to others in those support groups.
That's true. And if you get to the point that you think that you need some more help because you're depressed, because you're suffering from anxiety, Psychology Today, and you wouldn't have thought of this necessarily, but Psychology Today does have a therapy directory, and it has a lot of clinical professionals, and I think they do that by your zip code. And so if you think you need a little more assistance, one-on-one counseling, you can find that through Psychology Today, and that'll be in our resources too. The other one I was trying to remember, well, there's all kinds of things on the internet. I think in our resources, we also talk about how you can find a care manager. If you're just at your wit's end, you can't get the family together, you can't get a care team together, maybe you need some outside assistance. We will include that on resources because there is a number that you can go to and locate care managers also that are specifically trained to work with this type of topic with caregivers, with older adults. So I encourage you to use that too if you get to that point. Don't let that anxiety, that stress get out of hand, because it just makes everything so much worse. You need to address that too. Don't deny that you are having those issues.
One of my other favorite resources, Glenda, is the Alzheimer's, it's alz.connected.org. It's a chat room. And I don't know how many of you folks have used chat rooms. I know I have when I had a problem with some product or something. And it's cool because, you know, you can get on the chat room and put some question in about, like, you know, what do I do when my loved one, who I'm trying to take care of the best I can, keeps saying, "Where's my lunch?" 45 times in a row. And I'm getting to the point where I just want to smack them.
That's right.
And we've heard people say that.
Yep.
So get on the chat room, find out what other people did if you can't go to a support group. It's like a, you know, telehealth thing. And telehealth, all of those people who are on the list on Psychology Today, the lists are split up by those who do telehealth. So it's on the phone, and Medicare does pay for it. And those who are on, you know, you see in person.
Right. And I think that if we talk about COVID, since COVID changed everybody's world, caregivers were particularly impacted. It has changed the way that we do these things with the online chat rooms, with online counseling, with online blogs. Those things have really, you know, blown up since COVID came into existence and is now in our world every day in every way. But I guess my favorite, and yes, I am biased, are our podcasts that we have through the WellMed Charitable Foundation. You can see on that additional resources is our Caregiver Teleconnection podcast. Now, I can't give you an exact timeline of when we started doing podcasts or recordings, but there are years, I'll say that I'll generalize. There are years of podcasts with different presenters, different topics that are on that website, the WellMed Charitable Foundation website, or as I said, you can now find us on YouTube. And a lot of caregivers, as I've gone through and looked at who's viewing, are viewing those at their own convenience. It could be midnight when you find 5 minutes that you want to get a little information for the next day. It's available for you 24/7.
Yeah, I have a question from Susan. Could you please give us that chat room website again? And you will get it with your resources. It's right under Alzheimer's. If you can go back a couple of pages there, Glenda. It is
and on the top.
Right. So it's www.alzconnected.org.
Right. Take advantage of these resources. This is just a few of what we're going to send you. We wanted to be sure that you had everything that you might want to locate. So you'll be getting those in a day or so. So answer the information. We ask for your feedback on the presentation. We'd love to hear from you on that. We'd also like to know if there are any topics that you would like to see us present on the Caregiver Teleconnection, or perhaps you've been to a session somewhere and you found a presenter that was just excellent that you think would be good for us to work with. Let us know about that also. But the main thing is you're going to have probably 4 pages of resources that you can refer to at your convenience and share with your family or the other care team members.
I have one more chat.
Okay.
This comes from Nanette. I'm at the point where I need some help dealing with my emotions. I found myself crying a lot. My sister has chronic kidney disease, COPD, and is in the early stage of dementia, and I care for her full time. Well, you need to get your resources in line, woman or man. Right. Nanette, yes.
Put on your hard hat and start filling in that pothole, which is in you.
You can't do it alone. You just can't. You know, and there are associations, you know, for chronic kidney disease, for COPD and dementia. There'll be people who will help you, but you've got to reach out. You know, don't pretend like you have to be everything. You can't be perfect. You can't do everything for your sister. And if you need emotional support, please call someone and get it. There's a new suicide hotline at the federal level, 988. which is available 24/7. And you can call and just talk to someone and just say, I'm at my wit's end. I need to talk to somebody. And they will spend time talking to you. You can also call 211 in your local neighborhood and ask for, the local mental health office or referrals to mental health counselors. So take care of yourself. That's number one, not your sister. It's you.
Absolutely. And I'd like to say, as a previous area agency on aging director, I don't want to leave that resource out because I do find it is a hidden resource for most people. Area agencies on aging are located throughout the United States. 211, you can reach them through them. We have the eldercare.acl.gov. You can also enter your zip code there and it'll find the area agency on aging. They are specialists in caregiving issues. They get federal funding for that. This is your tax dollar at work. So use them. They also know about all the resources in your community, whether it's mental health, whether it's respite care. Some they provide, some they just refer to, but use that as one of your standby resources. Put that in your toolbox.
Minerva,
on
were we
that
supposed to leave time
note,
for you?
yes, you
Yeah,
were,
Minerva.
Sorry.
but that's all right. Thank you both, Evalyn and Glenda, for helping us out in today's presentation. Just want to give a little bit of what's coming up for you in the Caregiver Teleconnection for this month. On Monday, February 12th, we have Communicating with the Healthcare Providers in the Office with Sandra Hilger. That's going to be at 12 o'clock Central. On Thursday, February 15th, we have Caregiving with Loss and Trauma with Dr. Natalie Oliver. And then on Tuesday, February 20th at 10 a.m. Central, we have Voices of Alzheimer's with Jim Taylor. And all these presentations will be recorded. I do encourage you to get registered, even if you know you're not going to participate. That way, so you can receive the handouts if there are any. And with that, any final words, Glenda, Evalyn?
Well,
I just want to thank the participants for what they do.
Absolutely. And for your journey, and hang in there. There's a lot of support for you, and we're part of that support system. So, keep that in mind as you develop your resources. And thank you so much for what you do and for joining us today.
And thank you, everyone, for participating today. And I'd also like to thank the Wilmette Charitable Foundation for promoting this program. And on that note, everyone, have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Nice job, Minerva.
Thank you, Minerva.